welcome back to the table. We're going to go ahead and get started with the actual gameplay, but we're still using the quick start guide, so we're still in the tutorial going through, the steps that it's telling us to do. I received some feedback that the audio on the last video was stuttery. The camera device uses a Wi-Fi connection, and so if there's any latency in the Wi-Fi, it does cause that to happen, which is why most of the time it works and then just it glitches. So my solution for it is I am using the Wi-Fi for the video, as you can see here, and the audio is I'm using a microphone specifically for the audio, which is wired and separate. So you should notice a lot less glitches. My only concern is when I did some testing, this microphone seems to be really loud. But I see the problem is when you upload to YouTube, everything sort of fixes itself. So it's YouTube does all kinds of changes to your videos. So we're gonna go ahead and this section is entitled Enter Location, which is an action that you can do. And if you look on the back of this is the main rule book here. There's available actions when you're in the adventure, when you're at a location, or you're on the world map, and then when you're in combat. So we're on the world map right now, and we're going to enter a location. That's the thing they're asking us to do. So the first thing they told us to do is, technically we're still in this event card, right? And so we created our characters, and then they tell us to flip over the card, and then we read this, which I actually read on the last video by mistake, and then it says flip hex E2 and place the party token on it, then banish this card. So and that was the part where I was crying because I was like, well, I'd rather put the card back where it belongs than banish it. So the one thing we didn't do in the last video is we didn't flip hex E2. So if you look at this basin here, E2 is right here. And I wish they would have explained it to you, but all you have to do is push on the right side and then see how this pops out. And then it's a real easy, and it's indented. I showed that on the last video. And then right here it says this is the Exiles camp. So that's where we are. And then it shows that there is a big 0. That's the part in brown there. And then I don't know what the guild means. And then the POI one. So those are the 3 pieces of information that it gives you. And of course, we know that we're doing adventure actions because we're in the adventure mode instead of combat. So I'm just trying to, I'm saying this less for your benefit than I am for my own, because I'm trying to understand the structure of the rules and, how do I know when I can do this and when I can't? And anyways, so I'm reading from the quick start guide here. We flipped to hex E2, and we're supposed to place the party token on it. So our party is there. So that's simple enough. And then, of course, we banish our card, which I did. And now it says you choose to interact with the big 0 pointer on the hex E2 by doing the enter location action. So that big 0 is the location that we're going to enter. And so it's telling us to look at the big 0 maps, the big area maps for a big 0 map. Okay, so I'm going to push this off to the side because this is really flavor. It's just there for giggles. And then I'm grabbing something off camera here. They want us to grab the box that says big. And then somewhere in here is big 0, right? So these are still in their candy wrapper. So give me a second while I do my worst job ever of getting that open. Okay, that took a lot longer for me to open than I expected. So what you get is, it says big 0 right here, so that's how I knew to grab this one. And then the flavor text for it, threadbare tents stand here, flaps swing slightly in the breeze. As you draw near, the din of the camp washes over you, voices buzz in excitement, swords clang in practice. And as you approach, a mustached man beckons you. So then now there is this thing here you're supposed to play music. It does have a website you can go to. I'm not doing any of that nonsense, so we're flipping this over. With my luck, they would get me with a copyright violation. One thing I really appreciate is if you're still uncertain that this is the right place. I mean, right there is Hex E2. I think that's meant to be like a location you can exit to. And then you can see here there's a medium 0 map that you can exit to as well. So this is a world exit, right? You're exiting to a world hex. This is just exiting to another location within this area. So very interesting how that's laid out. Notice how this is a darker blue, and that's more of a brown, a wooden brown. And then, as you can see, we have various things on the map. It looks like there's an event here, there's a NPC here, and another NPC there. So I don't know what this little equal sign here means, but there's, oh, I'm sorry, those equal signs. We know what those are, right here. Those are considered difficult terrain or barriers. So you can overcome those, like these wood piles here, because those all have equal signs, but it takes 2 movement points. And I don't know what the bow and the sword mean. I'm assuming it means a certain character class, but we'll find out as we go. So anyways, there we go. We have our location. Let's get the camera in a position where it's not going to fall off my table, and maybe zoom in a little. There we go. That looks much better. All right, and let's see what it's telling us to do now. Okay, so we got everything on here. Oh, the game does tell you to push on the right side of the hex to pop the other. So I was saying, wouldn't it be nice if they told you that? And they do. It's just I didn't get there yet. All right. Each player places their miniature as close as possible to the hex E2 pointer. This is where you enter the location. So this is the pointer that it's referring to. So I guess we are all as close as possible. It doesn't say if I'm allowed to do diagonal or orthogonal. None of that's clear, but I'll just do that. Because there's an event on the map, you must place an event token on it immediately. So that's, we have those punched. That's these things. And so that goes there. Makes sense. No problem. The enter location action is now complete. And you're ready to start moving around. Okay, so the enter location is as simple as that. You just enter the location, you get the map out, and then you put your characters on the board. Okay, fair enough. The quick start guide is definitely holding my hand. I'm not complaining about that, to be honest. I think that holding the hand when you're trying to learn a game is admirable. So, okay, so now there's another section here, and I'm going to move the camera. There's a whole page on NPCs, and then there's a whole page on events, and then explore map, which is where the actual action is going to happen. I'm going to pause real quick. I'm going to review it all and then try to summarize for you, because I think it would take me a half hour to get through this, because there's a lot of reading, and maybe it's important, maybe it's not. Let me try to at least pretend like I've played this game before, so to spare you some time. Okay, so the basic gist of the quick start guide is we're in what's called adventure mode, where we can do any of these actions that you see here. We can interact, skills, items, trade, and equip. Like, most of this is just character management stuff, but the interact skill is the primary one that we're going to do. Now, there is a move action, which is, we'll talk about that in a second, but just keep that in the back of your head. And travel is different. That's world map, but there is a move, and I'll go over that real quick. So we're going to do some interaction stuff, and then we're eventually going to get to do a combat. This guide is very rudimentary. Like, this is extremely tutorial, what we're doing. But I do appreciate the amount of pictures and explanation that it gives. It looks overwhelming because it's a lot of text to go through. But once you go through it, it's like, okay, they did a really good job. It's very thorough. Let's put it that way. Um, Now, one gripe I have is like if I put this on my shelf and I get it out 6 months later, I don't want to go through this again. I hope the rule books cover everything well enough that I don't have to do this. But anyways, it's not bad. Let's just put it that way. And if I had to go through it again, there's worse things that I've done. Now that move action I told you to put in the back of your head, that's what this little thing up here is. So we can move to whatever's up there, right? That's another reveal. And there is something in here that says that you can't do that until you've cleared the tokens on this particular map. So there is one token, that's this one, that needs to be cleared. But that's not what it's asking you to do first. So there are 3 things of interest on this particular map. There is this NPC 0, there's this event token, and then there's an NPC over here as well. Now, a couple things I find interesting. The first thing is they want us to go talk to this guy and ignore the other 2 things. So fine, we can go do that. So in order to do that, any player can say, hey, I want to go talk to this guy, and put themselves next to him, like this. And before the interaction starts, every other player, doesn't matter where they are, there's no movement points, there's none of that type of stuff. You have instant teleportation across the whole map, as long as you're in adventure mode. So the moment combat starts, then things change. So it doesn't matter where anybody is. Everybody could say, hey, I will join you, and I will join you, and you have my axe, you have my sword, and you have my dagger. So yes, they all go up, and we're all going to interact with NPC 0. It is possible that whoever's playing this character could say, screw you guys, I'm going this way. But they still have to, like, from sitting at the table perspective, they're still going to have to stop whatever they're doing and listen to the other 3 players interact with this person. They're just not going to be participating in it. So, like, if they all take 1 damage, then whoever wasn't participating would avoid taking that damage, I guess. That's the only thing that I can think of that would be a reason why you don't want to join, is you think there's going to be some kind of negative interaction with NPC 0. So obviously they told us to all get up there and let's talk to NPC 0. So I gotta find the NPC 0 card, which of course is conveniently the very first card that is in the NPC section. And the next thing that happens is, I don't know why my dog's barking. Okay, so they do a great job of breaking down this card. First things first, this is all role-playing flavor, but it's still pretty cool. This game, apparently, it's made itself very clear. This is meant to be a role-playing experience. So, if you're playing with other human beings, this card gets handed to what's called the guide. So whoever chose to do the interaction, like let's say it was, this person here, the Near the Plucky, then whoever's to the left of her would be the guide. And the reason why the guide is important is severalfold. The first one is they may earn points, role-playing points, which is what you see here. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but still. Role-playing points are things that they can spend to help them later. But so here's how. So his demeanor is gruff. He's rubbing his hands, and he has a deep voice. So that player is supposed to start rubbing their hands and go, your mentor is here giving last advice, wishing exiles well as they depart. So then you start rubbing your hands again. And well, no wasting around. The region is a good spot. You see what I mean? Like, that's supposed to guide the guide on how to read this text. And so then, or even if you're, so now we're playing this solo. So as I'm reading it myself, I'm imagining some guy rubbing his hands in a deep voice. I mean, it's very helpful. I am not making fun of it at all. It's I think it's extremely helpful. The fact that he put this much care into each of these characters is quite impressive. Now, for me and how I play games, if this was a video game, I would really appreciate the voice acting that goes with it, and I don't really mind. But like, most of the time I'm skipping all that, and I'm just trying to get to, okay, what are my questions? What are my things, right? So, anyways, well, no use waiting around. The region is a good spot for the guild. Lots of people needing help. I just heard of some pests causing trouble nearby, and there's a village not too far from here where you can pick up some jobs. Okay, so um, that's it in a nutshell. You read that to the rest of the party. Then what you're supposed to do, according to the rules, is wait for them, just like a real role-playing game, like you're playing real Dungeons and Dragons. They're supposed to ask questions, and that's it. That's all the help you give them. And so they're saying, well, can I learn more about the pests, sir? Or, can you tell me about the jobs, right? And depending on what question they ask, there's 4 things that will cause you to flip the card over, and then there's a response that you give to the players. Now, if they ask anything other than those 4 things you see listed there, then they're supposed to smooth their mustache, and like they could actually like do that, reach up and twirl their mustache or smooth it over. That seems to fall outside of my recollection. so, like you can play this game, and if your table's into it, they can really roleplay this. And if nobody thinks of asking about jobs, then that never gets read. Now, I know my gaming group. My gaming group, if they were playing this with me, they would say, just read the 4 dang options and let us choose. And just so you know, the rulebook says that you can do that. So it's recommending that you do it where you don't reveal what these 4 options are, and let them actually roleplay the game. But the rulebook also says you can just stop and read it all to them, or guide them as they call it. So it's up to you how you want to do it. As a solo player, you're not going to be able to avoid seeing what those options are. So the whole role-playing thing, unless you're truly schizophrenic in your personality, you're not going to be able to pull this off. So I just want everybody to understand what the rules say you should do, and then what you can do, and you do not have to go so heavy in the role-playing. It's just that the game is designed to let you do that if you want. Again, no complaints. I find that extremely cool. It's not useful for me as a solo player, or even just in my style of play, but because I tend to agree with my gaming group, I just want to be told the 4 options. But it's still, I totally applaud and commend that they designed it to allow people to play a different way. So, anyways, that's my long way of saying just read the 4 dang options and decide what you want to do. So, in my case, you do need to like state what your preference is, because you're going to have to flip this over, and maybe one of these options is going to cause him to no longer want to speak with you. So you can't just like blindly flip it over and start at the top. But that is what we're going to do here, because this is a friendly NPC that's in a tutorial, so he's not going to do something that cruel to you. I can't remember what one they told us to do first. Oh, they didn't. It really is meant to be whichever ones players say, keep doing it until they're ready to leave. That's it. And leave does have an option, even though it doesn't say that here. And I'll show you as we flip it over. So if they ask about the region, it says the continent of Arydia is as diverse as the people who call it home. This stall, the guild is operating here in the basin. Sorry. And then this is a follow-up question. You can ask about the basin, right? So that's what that little arrow means. So the grasslands here are surrounded by mountains on all sides, and thus the name. It was once a part of a mighty kingdom that now lies in ruins, and then boom, you get an RP point. Oh, by the way, I figured out something that had puzzled me in the previous game. In the previous game, I said, I don't know what these are. These are max tokens. So, here, let me show you. If I come over here to Tippy the Hungry and move his cards out of the way, we have these max tokens here, right, representing their max skills. And what it's saying is I can I can take this out, and instead I can use this, like that. That's a max token. Now, the reason why you are told not to do that is because it can move around. So you use the double, and then once it gets up near the top, then you can put that up there to represent that they still can't get to 20. Now, the reason why it came up here in the rule set is because the number of players in the game dictates how many role points you can collect. So if you're playing as a solo character, you can have 3 role points. If you have 2 characters in the party, you can have 2, and if you have 3 or more, you can have 1. So if you're playing as 2 characters in a party, you would just use that, and now you have room for 2 role-playing points. So in this case, we're playing a 4-character game, so this goes in like that, and we only have room for 1. So what this is saying, and once again, I forgot to mention who the guide is, so I'm going to just say he's the guide. So we're going to put that in. He just earned a role-playing point because he's the one reading the card, if you will. All right, so we're going to go ahead and come back here, and my rule of thumb, because I know I'm going to forget this a lot, is the next guide is going to be somebody who doesn't have a role-playing point. And it's going to always be that way for me, because I don't want a guide to be reading and getting role-playing points when he already has one. Okay, so that's what that means. You get a role-playing point, and what do they do? It says when making an attribute check, strength, dexterity, etc., the exile making the check can spend 1 role-playing point to add +3 after seeing the result in combat or adventure mode. So after you roll, you can spend 1 of those to add +3 to your result to pass, or whatever you need to do for your check. So these role-playing points are important and extremely valuable. The fact that you can have more than 1 when you have less characters in your party, as you know, that's meant to overcome the fact that you have a smaller party. So I really love, it's very genius of these designers to put mechanics like that in. How well does it play and balance? I have no idea. I've never played a smaller party. I've never even played a 4-player party. But our halfling scout has one, and it's pretty dang cool. So far, I'm enjoying this game. Now, I'm not anywhere close enough to be able to evaluate whether I like it as a whole, but so far, none of these mechanics are bugging me. So let's go. So if they were to ask about pests, it says the pests were reported near Raggle Junction. Have no idea what that is. To get there, just follow the path to the west, then head north. And once you've hit the main road, there is no path to the west, so I have no idea. And I know this for a fact because there's a compass right there on the right on the corner, and that med 0 is north, not west. Felsworn Village is nearby. Just head north across the plains and you'll get to the gate. So there's go. The village is north. The pests are west and then north. Jobs. The guild has job boards in all the villages and towns. They don't usually provide squills, but if you need to earn some coin, it's a good place to start. So we can go to the village and get a job. Okay, so that's NPC 0, and as you can see, he's basically just giving you information. That's all he does. And then you can choose to leave, and this is just here, I don't know, forever. He's really just a part of this map, and so when you put this map away, you would put him away. So I'm just going to put this over here on the left, and we'll call it a day. So we got our RP point, which was the important part, and the one thing is it's telling us not to talk to NPC 161 up there. I don't know why, and the curiosity is killing me, so I'm going to look at NPC 161 just to see who the heck it is. And NPC 161 is not even an active NPC. Oh, hold on, I was looking in the wrong section. Wrong section. There we go. Okay, NPC 161 is Cestasin. He's an inquisitive. Greetings, fellow guildmate. I am Cestacin. If you're looking for something or someone, I might be able to help you locate what you're looking for. And it lets you look for a guild or locate. And let's see. The guild. He's a cartographer. You can choose a key card you have and then draw an event, and he'll discern where on the map you need to take it. Interesting. Well, let's just do this. This isn't part of the tutorial, but let's do it. I've already opened the card. So there's no rules telling us we can't go up and talk to that guy up there. It's just that the tutorial told us not to. So I'm being a rebel here. So we're going to go up and talk to this elven man, and yes, I'm supposed to move my miniatures up. I'm not going to. Sure, fine. It's the first video. So you have to always be adjacent to him. So he's in the middle of one. So you do this. So we're going to surround him like we're a bunch of criminals ready to rob him. And then an elf sits cross-legged in the grass. He says, "Greetings." You know, I'll let you read. And we can either ask about the guild or locate. So I'm going to ask about the guild. And then you can see he's part of the guild, but he's a cartographer. Then you further ask about the cartographer, and this is going to be Ingot the Gruff, who's the guide, and he gets a role-playing point. So why would I not want to do this? I want the role-playing points. So now we got one for Ingot. Alright, and then he says he's an exile like us, but he has no desire to return home. He's happy with his new job. And then if you do locate, he says that if you have a key, he will help you locate it. Okay, we have no keys, which is probably why they told us not to go to this guy. But we have no keys, so there's nothing to do here. But I'm going to go, once again, set this off to the side. And that's another guy for this location. So then, yes, we can't leave the map until we resolve this event. So now we are, once again, moving around. And all of us want to resolve this event, which is, I got to lift up the token, it's event 13. So now I go over, and in case you're wondering, it's as simple as just, these are the active cards. So now I'm just looking for 13. So like this one is 12, and then this one is 13. So that's what we're grabbing. And it says, a map is cleared once there are no foe tokens, foe meaning enemies, and no event or chest tokens on the map. To clear the area, we have to remove the event. Okay, so now we move on to around the camp. And yeah, that is the right side. So I asked him where he got the fish. The small crowd erupts with laughter as you draw near a tall man with long blonde hair is at the center of attention. He eyes you cautiously as you approach. It's good to see new faces. Where have you been exiled from? And so you could, you know, you're supposed to let your group guess. They're going to say Pittsburgh. You know, New York City. New York City. Anyways, Istanbul. No, Constantinople. No, Istanbul. Anyways, those are the 4 things that it's looking for. And like the rules said, the guide can guide you. So if you start arguing over Constantinople, you can, you know, hey, we're looking for more like the type of terrain you're from, you know. So anyways, so let's say we're from the city, you know, you flip it over, and it doesn't matter what answer you give, he says the same thing, which I think is funny. Okay. Yes, I should have guessed. By the smell. Yes, because, you know, we got that city smell. More laughter. The man slaps his companion on the back as they saunter off, chortling. The crowd begins to disperse. Exiles mill about, tightening packs, sharpening swords, and preparing for the day ahead. Alright, so we get to banish this card, which is good, because I'm tired of his man's jokes. And then we gain one of these. See this little pink thing? That pink thing is the most precious thing in the game. It is experience. It looks like a candy wrapper. Or like a man stuffed in a carpet. You know, like if you rolled a carpet up around the man and then used twine around where the neck is and around the legs. That's what that looks like. Anyways, um, so we all gain an experience point, and then I can banish the card. So I will banish the card, and let me move some stuff around so I can show you how the experience points work. Okay, so experience points are this. And so we have a 1x, and is it 1x? So it's a 1 or a 3. So we're going to just grab 4 of these. When experience points are earned, the whole party earns them equally. So there is no, hey, you know, character 1 got it, but nobody else. So we go over to, where am I going to? Oh, right here. So we go to Tippy's board, and you can see the, and actually, look at this. It's not a candy wrapper. It's XP with arrows on the top and on the bottom. I'm telling you that looks like, you know, somebody who's like mafia style, wrapped up in, you know, they wrapped them up in some kind of plastic and then, you know, tied twine around the neck and legs. Anyways, that's what it's supposed to be, and then you just put it in here. So they have 1 experience point, and so you just lay that in there like so. And you know, the fact that they have spots for 2, 3, 4, 5 tokens is, you know, then you can have any combination of 5 tokens. You can have a 10, a 3, a 1 to make 14 or whatever. So there we go. And I mean, it's as good as any way to represent experience. You know, usually we use dice, right? You know, or I've been using like, heck, a lot of games make you write it down on a piece of paper. So I've been using poker chips, right? I give them each a poker chip. So I'm happy with the system. No problems there. Moving on. We all gained an experience point. Yay! Hurrah! One thing I can tell you is I read enough ahead when I paused the video. You can't just spend experience points anywhere. You have to be in a town or a village or whatever. So as we earn them, they're not usable yet, but they will be later. And no, I did not peek, like, how much experience do I need before I level up? Just to be quick on the reminder here, we are level 0. So I think that 1 experience point is enough to level up to level 1, because I'm guessing that the amount of experience points you need is equal to your current level plus, you know, 1 or whatever. It's going to be some kind of formula like that, and we're currently level 0. So we don't even have our level 1 tokens out. So I think that, and just as a reminder, how do I know this? Because right here, we are level 0. And I don't know why it's not there we go, level 0. So, you know, what's the formula to get to level 1? We're going to find that out soon enough, but we are level 0. So, and I'm sure the tutorial will make sure we're level 1 by the time it's done. So we actually interacted with everything, including the NPC they told us not to. I'm totally cool with that. So now the next thing it says, we want to do an explore action. It says, now that the map is cleared, you can head up to the practice field. In this example, we choose not to interact with NPC 161 yet, but continue exploring instead. Now, I did interact with 161, so that's where we deviated. But we're going to go ahead and go. Then it just says the active player. And this is the part that sort of confuses me, is everybody can go simultaneously, but then it says the active player. It sort of contradicts itself. But basically, you just pick somebody to be the active player, and they're the ones that are announcing they're moving to Med 0, or Medium 0, or however you want to pronounce that. So then the guide, who is still supposed to be the next player over, will then draw the Med 0 and do the narration and all the stuff that goes with it. So it's like, hey guys, I'm moving to Med 0, and so they come up here, and then everybody else has to decide they're also moving to Med 0. And there's one there, and I guess this guy's in the back, like so. This one has only 1 hit point, so I will put her in the back, or him, or whatever. It's a her. And then off we go. So we are going to get out another map, so I will bring this a little closer. There's no harm in the camera being on that. And then we'll move this a little further up to make room. And then I got to get out this Med Zero map pack, so give me a second. Okay, so to get the wrapper off, you have to pull all the maps out, peel away the wrapper. Just remember, when you put them back in, you need to make sure this part is what's showing, or otherwise you won't be able to identify your maps. Because you could always put them back in the wrong orientation. And anyways, Med Zero is the one we're grabbing, so let's do that. It wasn't hard to pull out the whole stack, but it is harder to grab this one. They're in there pretty tight, so anyways, it comes out easy enough. I'm just going to put everything back. So this is called the practice field. You see a small clearing where the ground has been well worked by exiles practicing all forms of combat. Alright, you're next. You walk over and take your place. Thades starts the practice dummy. It wheels out from a pond and it begins to wobble towards you. Start this combat on any space adjacent to starting point X. I don't know what X is, but maybe when I flip it over I will. So we're going to flip it over and let's get the camera oriented. And then one thing I can tell you is the guide says you have to match them up like so. So this pointer has to match that pointer. So that's easy enough. And then here's the X. And it said that the combat starts at X. So what that means then is you need to put your characters at X. And I'll see this is difficult movement here. So I'm going to put the ranger in the difficult movement spot. And then we'll get him up front. And then this, and then I'll put the mage in the back. And I know I'm always gonna say the class is wrong. To me, this is always a ranger, that's always a rogue, that's a mage, and a cleric. And I know it's supposed to be light wanderer and all this other stuff, but forgive me for that. Okay, so there's a couple of things here. There's this SML 0, right? And then there's some stairs. That's going to be an exit to another map, which I'm guessing is where the pests are, right? Because the pests were left and up. And then this is a foe 0. And we're going to be fighting him, faux show. Oh, man, I enjoy this game too much. Alright, so foe 0, there's two of them. There's a 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. And you'll have to bear with me because we're now at the part where I didn't quite read all the way. So, first thing we're supposed to do is... yes, we moved to the spot where the X was, and then we had to flip this to combat. So we're now in the combat phase. So there's no free movement on the map anymore. Then it says take THR1 through THR12. Those are card types. And those stand for threat. There's 12 cards total. We need to shuffle them and place them face down to make a threat deck. Alright, so it's THR time. I don't know if you guys have those attorney videos, but we have like and those are like the guys who are like the ambulance chasers, right? It's THR time. So we're going to go in and give you the money you deserve. Alright, maybe that's a local thing. So, under the active, I'm going to show you. There are active and inactive cards over here. So, behind THR, there are active THR cards, and I bet you any money there's exactly 12 of them, and there are. See how that works? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they want you to basically flip them over and shuffle, shuffle. And these are nice cards. They shuffle really well. They're almost as... They feel like the chip theory cards. You can take them into a bathtub with you and they're waterproof. They're not as slippery, though, as the chip theory ones. But yeah, these are nice to shuffle. Obviously you can sleeve them or whatever. So anyways, we're supposed to form a nice little threat deck, and hopefully this is good enough. You know, just keep swimming. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to take these cards and just set them over to the side here for now. And this is moving around because my camera leg keeps moving it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and just set it somewhere else for now. And we're going to focus on just this, because this is where a battle's happening. Okay, so after we do that, it says find on the threat combo track, get the threat, get all 4 hit dice. That's the next thing that it's asking us to do. And the hit dice are here. That's these big bad boys. They're really large. Okay, so we got those. Get the threat combo track and tracker cubes. Place each cube on the corresponding 0 space of the track. So what that's referring to is we have this beautiful bean footage. If you ever watch Bush Baked Beans commercials, roll that beautiful bean footage. Alright, there's a combo and a threat, and I don't know what color cubes are supposed to be used for each. It shows a gray cube for the threat. I don't see any gray cubes anywhere, but I do have I don't even have I have these orange things, but they're not cubes. Oh, there were 2 extra cubes. Right here. These were in one of our bags that we opened a long time ago, and we didn't know what those were for. Now we do. So there's a combo cube and a threat cube, like that. Well done, well done. Next, it says find all the foe -0 cards. There's a 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. Yeah, okay, so that was easy enough. So foe 0 is foe show right here. And then there's a 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. So there's 2 total cards. And then what it's saying is one's an AI card and the other is the grid card. The AI card provides information about how the foe acts. The hit grid tracks the health of the foe. When the hit grid is completely filled with wounds, the foe is defeated. So we have a practice dummy. And it says it's using Fig 0, normal size. And it looks like there's a music that goes with it. And I'm assuming this is the hit track. I have no idea. We'll look that up later. And then here is, there's all the information that he does. There's a lot of information on here, so we're going to learn all this. It's pretty cool so far. And then what I really love is he has an FAQ. So we'll get into all this. It just said get him out, and that's what we did. And it says when the hit grid is completely filled with wounds, the foe is defeated. So I don't know what he's calling the hit grid, but like I said, he's had pictures everywhere. I just probably haven't gotten to that yet. And this is item number 5. So it's showing... Alright, so what it's showing us in the picture is it's trying to tell us that right here it says foe 0. So that's how we knew to get out the foe card. And then you get out the 1 and 2. And it says that one of them tells you to get out the Fig 0 figurine. And that is true. That is true. This one right here said that it uses the Fig 0 normal size figurine. So what does that mean? Well, there's boxes that have figurines in them, and then we have, like, even in our miniatures expansion, right, we have these other boxes, right, and these are for the small figurines. And when it says normal size, it's just helping you to know you don't have to get out the small miniatures, but just throwing that out there. And these boxes look like this. So there's a Fig Box 1, and then all over it are Fig Box figurines. And I'm supposed to get figurine 0. And I don't see that anywhere on here. So this apparently is not what I'm supposed to be opening. I'm looking at Fig Box 2. Also does not have Fig 0 on it. Uh-oh, I got things ready to fall. Red alert, red alert. I have components ready to collapse on me. Alright. We have saved the day. Okay. I'm going to pause and try to figure out where Fig 0 is. Okay, I lied. It was on Fig Box 1. It's right here. See how it says Fig 0? Right there. So this is cool. This is like an advent calendar if you've ever used one of those. So you open this up, and there's all these little perforated punches. So here's Fig 0. So we're going to punch that one and open. And then out comes a painted miniature, which is awesome, of a dummy. I think that is cool. What a cool little system. Alright, it's even cooler that he's painted. So, that's done. And to be honest, when we played Oathsworn, it was very similar. I'm not saying that that's not a innovative thing. It's just cool. That's all. Alright, so we got ourselves Mr. Crash Test Dummy here, and we'll put him right on the faux 0 spot. Okay, let's continue. So it says that once you do that, alright, so there's some stuff here that it's explaining. Now it's saying that if you have multiple foes of the same type, to use these rings to differentiate them, which makes total sense. It is also telling us that once you've determined and gotten your miniature, to flip this over and use this side, which we have. Next thing it's telling us is to read the FAQ, and then when you're done, flip that over. So let's do that real quick. So it says, if the foe hits an armor which has remaining durability, am I required to use it and thus add a wear token to it? Yes. What is this icon? That's a great question. That is a hit point. You see that here. See that? So those are hit points. If you wound all the foe's hit points, they're defeated. See hit grid details on page 30. What is this icon? That is a critical. If a directional damage passes through it, the hit points it points to will be damaged. That's interesting. We're going to see how that plays out. I don't know what that means to directional damage, but we'll find out. What is this icon? That is a weak point. Wounding a weak point will trigger a specific effect. For this foe, it will increase threat by 1. That's the head there. And it looks like one in the belly. What is this icon? This is an armored point. Place an armored cube on it at the start of combat. When you damage this point, remove the cube. After that, it's a normal hit. Oh, very cool. Because it's the armored point is over a shield. That's a pretty cool little mechanic there. I've never seen that before. I like it. I definitely like how it's got the mechanic of certain parts are armored and other parts are not. There's some coolness to that. It's not just like, hey, you're fighting a guy and he has 8 armor, right? So his whole body is 8 armor, right? And then when you do hit points, it's just hit points against the whole body. So we'll see. I mean, this could become cumbersome and I end up hating it later, but so far it's pretty neat. He's getting very detailed. Okay, the next thing it's telling us to put the cube on, like I just did. So I got a little ahead of the game there. Then it's telling us that, to flip this over to here. I'm going to move this up so we can see it a little better on the camera. And then it's explaining, okay, we were Fig 0 normal size. Like, what does that mean? It says foe miniatures are hidden inside the 2 Fig boxes. However, Whenever you encounter a new foe, open the door, and yep, we did that. The level of the foe compared to your exile's level can help you gauge its difficulty. A foe of equal level will be a challenge. A single level higher than you will be difficult. A foe that is 2 or more levels above you will be very tough. Maybe you should flee and come back later. This section denotes the size of the miniature base for the foe. There are normal, which is 1 by 1, large 2 by 1, and large 2 by 2 foes. And large foes have special rules for movement because of their larger bases. So we're not going to deal with that here because this is just a normal size foe. Okay, foe show. I know, I'm going to use that joke way too much. So now it's saying that we need to get out our 6 player aids for combat. And then each player goes through their player aid and resolves their combat. It says here, unlike the freeform structure in adventure mode, combat mode carefully tracks turns, movement, and actions. In combat, foes and exiles alternate turns, with play proceeding clockwise around the table. Each player takes the combat sheet for their chosen path. If playing with 2 or more players, get a copy of Med CE, Foe CE from the back of their respective decks in the index, and a practice dummy token for each additional player. Simultaneously read and resolve your combat examples. Check to see if the other player needs any help. Once everybody has completed their combat example, return here. Okay, so it says additional copies of Med Zero and Foe Zero grid card are provided so players can simultaneously do their combat at the back of their respective decks. Okay, so a couple of things going on. All 4 players are supposed to go through their player aid, which, remember, I was really concerned that there were like 4 pages of guides for each thing. I was really concerned that like we were gonna have to memorize all this for each character, and if I'm soloing 4 of them, it's like, holy crap, they all have 4 unique sets of rules. That's not the case. This is all just tutorial stuff, and so we have this in play because if there were 4 human beings, they would then go through combat simultaneously, and then they would follow their guide step by step to resolve their combat, so they can learn how their character works. I think this is pretty darn cool. And theoretically, we could actually look at the Path of Valor and the other one to decide if I made the right choice on which classes I wanted to bring, right? Because if you're stuck like I was, and like, should we have brought Valor and the Bard? Inspiration. You could theoretically do this combat and say, hey, that feels good to me. I like that type of character. Maybe let's swap it out for, the mage or whatever. This is the time to do that. Now, what it's also saying is that somehow in the back of these decks there are additional cards. That's the part that confused me. It's called Med CE and Foe CE. So the Foe deck, the Foe deck is, sorry, I'm doing something that's causing loud beeps. So there's a Foe CE card in the back here. And you can see there's 2, 3 of them. And I'm just going to take them out and show them to you. The whole idea of these is that these are extra practice dummies. So that way all 4 players can go through simultaneously and resolve their combat without having to wait. What a great little idea that he thought of, was very thoughtful and did that. So we don't need those at all because we're just 1 player, so it doesn't help us. But if you did have real human beings, that's a great thing. Knowing my gaming group, I would be the only one that knows the rules, and they would make us go through them one at a time because we want to see how the other players work. But it's still cool though if players. And then the other one is the Med CE. Now that one I'm not so sure. I'm assuming that that's this. And I look in the back, and sure enough, there's some red ones. And yeah, right here, look at that. There's a extra practice field, so they can even have their own practice field. So there's 3 more of them in the back of the medium box. So every player can have one of these practice fields in front of them, and really what you're doing is you're fighting them one at a time, like this. So you're not doing party combat against these particular characters. Now, I'm assuming that you do party combat normally, but for this purpose, we have to go through them one at a time. And then we have to go through all the player aids, and then once we're done, we come back to this guide. Okay, so we're sitting at 1 hour. This is going to take a while to go through each player aid like this. Like I said, they're 4 pages long, and there's a lot going on. The one thing I guess I'm a little disappointed in is I would have preferred to have had party combat so I can see how one player and the next can help each other. But at the same time, I get it. The whole point of this is to learn your own character, and then we can try party combat later. So yeah, let's dive in and see how this works. I am very relieved I don't have to have all of these player aids in front of me the entire campaign. Because that's something Chip Theory games would do to me. You have each character has their own, player aid with a million rules on it. That's only for that player. That's what I was worried this was going to be. So we have our ranger here. So let's do the ranger first, and then we'll go through each of these as quickly as we can. And to be honest, they're looking very similar. So I think once we get through the first one, the other ones won't be as painful. But I still have a lot of interest in doing this because I want to learn how these characters work, and then I might pause. And so, for example, we have the Path of Valor and the Path of Inspiration here, which we chose not to do. And I may change my mind, right? I may decide, hey, you know what? These characters look fun, or more fun than the one I just did. We'll see. I would have actually loved to have had a 6-person party, and I would have loved to have brought all 6 of these into the game. That's just my style. But anyways, let's do this. Let me pause. I need to get some refreshments, and I will take some time while I'm paused to at least read ahead and make sure I understand what I'm reading. And then, yeah, let's get into the combat, which is going to make or break a game like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing that it says is that you need to physically start right here on this rock. So just a reminder, it's a more difficult terrain because it has these double signs which are barriers. But that's where they want you to start, and of course that starts there. In combat, the foe always goes first. It specifically states not to draw from the threat deck, but the first thing they do is they draw a threat card. And what they're doing is they're drawing a specific card. So all I'm going to do is flip it over and grab the card that it said to draw. And I'm finding it. Oh, it was the one that was actually on top. That is so funny. It was the one we would have drawn. So this is the card that they wanted you to draw. I mean, because it's a very scripted event. So in this case, it's saying that if there was a boss, it would activate now. But since Foe 0 is a mob, as shown in the upper left of its card, which is here, so they're telling you to verify that that's a mob, then you do the bottom part. So it's an or, right? Excuse me, I need a drink. Okay, so the bottom part, that's a symbol for threat. And I know it's a little hard to see because they're both whitish. It's a white number on a white background, but there's a number 1 in there. And so the way you resolve that is you move the threat up by 1, like so. It's easy peasy. Done. The foe turn is now resolved. And it's also explaining a little bit further that threat is shared among all foes. I mean, there's only one foe, but if there was more than one, it would be shared among them. So that's good to know. So now exile turn 1, that's us. It's saying that there's a minor action of basic move. I wish they would lay out for us what the actions were. So if you look at the rule book in the back here, during combat, you have a basic move, basic attack, item, skill, and equip trade. So those are the things that we can do. So they want us to do a basic move for turn 1. And it says, put your minor action token on your feet. Got it. So, excuse me, this is a minor action basic move is how it's titled. And so you get these little action tokens here. And so they're saying, take the minor action token, which is this one, and put it on your feet to show that you did a move. That's what they're telling you to do. Alright, so we do that. And it explains here, on your turn you get 2 normal actions and 1 minor action, and any number of free actions. You can take these actions in any order. Basic move is a minor action that gives 3 movement points and generates +1 combo. In addition, you can spend 1 stamina for 2 more movement points. Not all actions allow spending stamina for bonus movement. Okay? That's just explaining to you how movement works without getting out the rule book, right? Because that's the thing, is like we're being spoon-fed here. I don't know what movement does, but somewhere in the rule book, I'm sure it explains all this stuff whenever you're doing the movement action, which I think is cool. But you know, for someone like me who's played board games for decades now, I want to understand how all that works. And sure enough, I found it here in the rule book. It's on page 29. You know, there's our actions in combat, and here's the movement one where it's laying all that out. So if you want to like just get the gory details, it's all there. This is spoon feeding us and just explaining it without actually looking at the rules. So anyways, long story short, I'm going to move this up so my rule book doesn't bump it. It's telling us to move the minor token there. It's explaining that all these things happen. It's saying that step 2, after we put that token on our feet, is we gain 1 combo point, so move that up. And then it says you move with 3 movement points. So next thing it's explaining is that the combo is shared amongst all allies that can spend skills. Now, we're doing these actions as 4 separate combats, but I'm assuming that when all 4 of them are together, then those get shared. It says movement and distance are always counted orthogonally. There we go. So that answered my diagonal question. Orthogonally, for those of you that don't know, is just north, south, east, west, no diagonals. When you make a basic move, you have the option to spend a stamina point for 2 movement, but you choose not to do that at this time, and that's fine. You have 3 movement points. You cross a difficult border, right? That costs 2 movement points. Then a normal border, which is 1, spending all your movement. That could have been worded so much better. Basically, a difficult border is 2 more movement points than a normal border, which means it's a total of 3. And you see that written here. And again, I'm assuming the bow means that, you know, because this is a bow character, so why they would start you there, I don't understand. But oh, I see. No. I'm sorry. It was worded correctly. It's saying 2 movement points to go to here, and then 1 movement point to go to there. That's what it's saying. So we spent 3 total. 2 to get over the normal barrier, and then 1 to go, I'm sorry, through that barrier, and then 1 more to go through a normal barrier. So that's 3 total. Okay, that makes sense? Done. So that was a minor action basic move. I don't know what a full action basic move is in contrast, but we'll roll with it. That or the minor action is the basic move is always a minor action. That would be nice to know as well. Okay, but remember, so our turn's not done yet because we still have 2 more of those pips. So we have 2 normal actions to do in addition to this minor action we just did. Also, because we're doing our combat separately from other people, I'm assuming, do I have to like do all my actions and then the next player can go, or can we you know, alternate? That's some of the stuff this isn't helping me with, but we'll, I'm sure, figure that out later. Next, it's telling us to do a normal action, basic attack. So it's telling us to put a normal action token on the practice bow. So we take our normal action, we put it on the bow, because now we're going to attack with that bow. And then, if you'll notice, there are symbols at the bottom. So it says endurance, it looks like 2+, 12+, and there's a 3 to 4 damage on it. Okay, and I'm sure the guide will step us through all that, but just letting you know that the bow has some numbers on it. Okay, then it says roll a d20, and you roll a 4. So we're not even rolling the dice. So we're going to roll a 4 on our d20. That's way better than my 1 I just rolled. I'm glad they rolled for me. So they're saying I just rolled a 4. And then we add our 1 endurance that we have to the result, because our character has an endurance of 1, so that puts us to a 5. Then we choose the left column and apply the attack pattern. And okay, we're going to get there and what the attack pattern means. So now let's go through their step-by-step explanation of things. For step 1, we put a normal token on the bow, and a basic attack is a normal action, requires a normal action token. So then it's showing your practice bow lets you target a single foe at a range of 3 to 4. That's what that 3 to 4 means. The foe is at range 4 because you're standing here, and then remember it's orthogonal, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Even though it's diagonally 2, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This is a ranged attack which can pass through impassable borders. Alright, so I don't know where it says that, but yes, we'll trust it. Impassable borders being the water, of course. So to attack, you make a threshold check. You roll the d20 and add your attribute, which is what we did. So 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 is only enough for the white attack pattern. So you can see there's 2 or more is white and 12 or more is gray. So you have the white attack pattern instead of the gray. So this is directional damage. It starts from the top of the grid card and moves down until it hits 1 hit point. Choose the left column and apply the first point of damage. So I'm assuming that means it's going to hit the helmet area. What if it was gray? Like, how does that change things if I would have gotten a gray? So this is a hit grid. It has hit points, weak points, armored points, and criticals. So I'm assuming it's trying to say that we hit it in the head, because we do the left first, which means we hit here. And I'm also assuming this is when I start using the crystals. It doesn't say. Let's keep going. Yeah, it's not being super helpful here. I gotta figure out something. Okay, so we're going to use the red cubes. If I can get this open. And then I drop stuff on the floor. Now I can't reach it. Alright. Jesus, I'm gonna need to be tested for Lou Gehrig's or something. I feel like I'm not able to even pick up basic components anymore. Alright, so here we go. We got this, and it's saying that that is a hit. There. Okay. Next, it's saying to do we're going to do a basic move, which is a minor action, but we're going to use our normal action token to do it. So again, it's asking us to take a normal action token, put it on our feet to show that we did a minor action, and then we're going to gain another combo point. We get to move with 3 movement points again, because that's what you get when you do a movement action. And then our turn's going to be over. So it says you can spend a normal action to take a minor action, but not the reverse. Okay, that's fine. So a move is always considered a minor action. You gain 1 combo. Now we're going to move 3 through the normal borders, spending 1 each time. So it's telling us to go 1. I'm sorry, we should have only been here in the first place. 2 and then 1. 1, 2, and then 3. So we're sort of behind these bushes now. And if you can see, the bushes have these little dashed black lines. So I guess we're hiding. And now our turn is over. So now the foe gets to go. So we draw a threat card. And the card they want us to draw this time is a mobber 1, which is this one here. Okay, so the foe is a mob, so it'll activate. If there weren't any mobs, then we would add a threat instead. But we must activate the mobs if possible. So then it's saying that we do what's on this card here. So it says it's saying that the mob is going to do this part right here where it's going to spend a threat. But let's just do let's read some of the more descriptive stuff here. Okay. The foe now, so it's pointing that it's going to do this step right here. The one with the 1. And I don't know like what the logic is. Why did it skip the 0? Is it that it does the bottommost one that it can afford to do? I'm assuming that's what you do here. It says the foe now spends as much threat as possible. There you go. As soon as I ask the question, it answers it for me. It does as much threat as possible. So it's going to spend 1 threat, go to 0. So it's going to do this middle action here. Alright, so it's going to move the foe to B. And what that means is it's going to move 6 spaces. And it wants to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like it's only going 5 spaces to there. And then it's going to whack. It's going to roll the red hit die, and your chest is hit for 1 damage. Add 1 wear token to your chest armor. The foe turn is now resolved. But now let's go through the text. So it's showing these different symbols here. A means they're targeting the furthest exile within range. That's what that symbol means. The 6 means it moves 6 spaces. Whack is the attack the foe will use. And whack, of course, is this attack down here. Alright. So looking at the positional grid, the sword is the foe, and the X is the target. So you can see the foe has got 1 space in between him and the target. The target must be 2 squares away exactly. Positional grids may be rotated in any direction, of course, so you can, do this. So the foe will spend its movement to get into position versus the furthest possible exile. In this case, you're the only target. There are 2 possible positions the foe could go to. So it's explaining that it could go here, or it could have gone there. And both of them were within movement. Sorry. Okay, barking episode's over. Alright, so it's saying that we could have moved it to either of those 2 places. If there are multiple valid paths, the foe will take the one that requires the least movement. Which is funny, because that means it would have moved here. If there are ties, then the players can choose. Position A takes less movement, so the foe moves there. But what's interesting is, look at this. It says position A is where they move, but look at what this says. Move the foe to B. So the rulebook contradicts itself. But fine. They move to A because they use the least amount of movement. Okay, then the foe attacks by rolling the red die. Whack has a red die next to it. That's how we know which one to roll. And they're saying that the roll was exactly this one. Right here. The black square is the location on the body grid that is hit. The squares with pips show the 4 possible locations the die can hit. So it can hit 1, 2, 3, but this black square is what it's trying to hit, which is the chest. So now they're saying to get out an orange crystal. I gotta show my dementia skills again and open another one of these things without spilling components all over the floor. Alright, and then we grab one of these orange tokens and it gets hit in the chest because this has, if you see there's 1 armor on the far left. And so it's going to take 1 wear as it absorbs that hit. Alright, interesting enough. It says the attack hits your chest space where you are wearing armor. The 1 defense, that was the thing I just showed you, tells you how much damage a piece of armor will block from each attack. The 1, and it's got a little anvil, so let me pick up the thing here. So, there I am, dropping stuff again. On the left, that's how much it will block each attack. In the middle here, that little anvil-looking symbol is how much, that's what it's explained next. That's a durability. That's how many times the armor can block the amount of damage. And the practice shirt can block 1 damage each time. So we place a wear token on the practice shirt and subtract the defense value of 1 from the 1 damage. The armor absorbed all the damage. Any damage you can't mitigate from an attack will cause you to lose hit points. Makes sense? Makes total sense. How did I know that the attack did just 1 damage? That's the only thing, that's just 1 pip. How did I know that's just 1 damage? I guess it's always just 1 damage? I mean, that makes no sense to me, but, or maybe if you have to roll more than 1 die. Oh, I'm sorry. It's right here. 1 damage. It's written right on the skill. Okay, we're all good. We're all good. And that's it. So it attacks us and does 1 damage. Their turn is over. So now it says, oh, and then this is answering my question, right? in a multiplayer game, the next exile in clockwise order would take their turn. Since you're the only player, you take the next turn. So that also doesn't make sense because the foe goes first, then I went, then the foe just went. Oh, I see. It's a I go, you go. The foe always goes between player turns. So so the foe goes first, then one of us goes, then the foe goes again, and then another one of us goes until all players have taken a turn. But in this case, since I'm the only player, I get to go again. So it's saying you refresh all your actions. So that's just simple, you get all your stuff back, right? Then we're going to do a minor action basic move, because for whatever reason, we just like to move all across the map. So again, we're going to put this on the feet. We gain another combo, which I guess is one of the nice things about doing the move. We move with 3 spaces, and then we have a reaction where we're going to pay 1 stamina point to move 2 more. So we're going to spend 1 of these stamina points to get 5 movement. So, I'm just going through the flavor, or the descriptive stuff. There's 2 reasons we can't attack from here. We're too close to use the bow. It requires a minimum of 3. And you can see that here, because it says 3 to 4 is the range. So that's one reason. And then you can't pass through obscure borders, which is the black dashed line. So those are the 2 reasons. So it's telling us that we're going to move 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to move all the way to there, which I guess is fine. Excuse me. We're 3 spaces away, so, and then we're going to use our snipe skill. So, on our next action. Then it says, during a basic move, as a reaction, you can spend 1 SP, which is a stamina point, for +2 movement, which is exactly what we did. Okay, so we move, we're in position. So that's the end of the minor action. So now we're going to do a free action, which is called a skill. So this is a free action. It's not an actual action. And here you can see we have, actually let's stop moving the camera. I'll just grab it. We have this skill called snipe. Right? So, we're not using that skill. We're using the mark skill. We're using a skill called mark. And you can see on the top left it says free. So we place a cube on a foe you can see. When the marked foe is damaged, we can pay 1 mana to deal extra damage to that foe. This is maybe why I should have been an elf. An elf would have given me more mana, I believe. That is an interesting change of things. But let's roll with it. Okay, so it's saying to place the mark on the foe's grid card. So I have this marker. We just place it on the grid card to show that he's marked. And then it's telling us to then do a normal action, and we're going to use the snipe skill. So the normal action is we're going to do this. And you can see there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a grid here that says we need to be 3 spaces away, right? So we're here, that's a bow. 3 spaces away is the target. And I need to, well, it'll explain to us how this, oh, here we go, 2, 12, and 16. So I'm assuming 2 is in the middle, 12 are these 2, and then 16 are those 2. And then it's endurance. So, so the way you do this is you take your regular action and you just put it on the snipe to show that we're doing the snipe skill. Alright. So to do that, it costs 3. Now, if you weren't paying attention, that 3 cost is right here on the top left. So that's where the cost comes from. And so we spend 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to roll a d20, and it says that we rolled 11, which is right there. Okay, so and then we have 1 endurance, which is going to make it a 12. Then it's saying apply the attack pattern, and then we're going to do a reaction, which is we're going to pay the 1 mana point to activate the mark and apply bonus damage. So I'll spend the mana point now, and we'll resolve all this. So let's get into the pictures, because the pictures really explain things really well. Okay, first thing first, it says mark is a free action that requires a clear line of sight to the target. And then to use mark, you must spend its marker. The marker refreshes when you're out of combat. Mark the foe, placing the marker on their grid, not on the AI card, which is fine. That's what we did. Perfect. We did that one perfectly. Then we're moving to the normal action. The snipe skill is a normal action. It costs 3 combo points. We did that. Then we're going to roll a d20. Your result is 11. Good enough only for the white range. And gives you the whole portion of the attack pattern. The blue diamond around this indicates its piercing damage. So, again, if you look at the snipe action, a 12, I'm sorry, an 11. Okay, the 11 is because they actually rolled a 10 and then got a +1 from the endurance. That's what happened. So they rolled a 10, they got a +1, so they were 1 short of the gray, and so they got the middle part there, and because it's surrounded by blue, that means it's a pierce. And of course we got to learn what all that means, so they're going to explain it. Then we go to 4. To apply aim damage, simply pick any unwounded hit point you choose to hit the armored point. When you deal piercing damage to an armored point, you remove the armor and apply a wound immediately. So since we had a piercing damage, what they're saying is you could choose to armor where the shield is, or wound where the shield is, because it ignores the shield, it pierces it. And then you get to put the wound right there. Because remember, to kill this thing, you got to wound it in all of its spots. So this is sort of cool. I have questions, but it's cool. Like, a lot of the questions are just centered around, like, I still don't understand how if I would have rolled a 12 or a better, or a 16 or a better, like, how that would have changed things, but, we'll just roll with it here. When you deal piercing damage, you remove the armor, apply a wound immediately. Then, after a marked foe takes damage, you can choose to activate the mark, so I spent the mana point already, and apply 1 bonus damage to the bottom right hit point. So what they're saying is, we're going to apply a bonus damage, and we're going to put it down here. You get to choose where. Very cool. I don't know why they wouldn't choose, like, the critical spots, but that's different. We're going with the thing. So next is, we're going to do a normal attack. So I'm just going to put my normal attack token on the bow. And so we're going to do a bow attack. So they're showing that we're going to put something on the bow, and we have something new happening here. We have the quiver. So you can see here the quiver has a +1, and then this little symbol below it. So they're telling us to use the quiver. So we're going to take this cube. So let's see here. I guess we just put it away. I don't know where we put it. The cube. So it says it's a reaction. We're going to spend the broadhead marker from your practice quiver. So it says you spend its marker, which increases the maximum range. It uses, that's what the +1 was, and uses the broadhead attack pattern. Quivers may be used in combat from your inventory, unlike other items. Quivers markers refresh out of combat. Okay. So then it says roll a d20, and it shows us rolling a 15, and then you get a +1 for your endurance, which makes it a 16 total. Alright, so use the threshold check from your bow with the broadhead attack pattern from your quiver. We get a result of a 16, which is good enough for the white and gray. Okay, so the bow, as you can see, has 2 or more as white, 12 or more as gray, right? And then the quiver, the X is the white, and then the gray is above it. So let's see what all that means. So it's saying that we get to do both portions of the attack pattern. We have to choose the hit points and apply the first point of damage. And then we have to apply a second point of damage. And it's saying that we could have activated Mark again, but we choose not to. Alright, so let's go through this one step at a time. The first point of damage is aimed. That's where you have the X. You could choose any hit point for this example. Choose the right column, third row, and apply the first point of damage. So it's saying, since we're aimed, that's what the X is for. We're going to go there. The second point of damage continues from where the first hit. It moves upwards, passing through the wounded hit point and hitting the top right hit point, which is this one here. So it hits that one, but it has the little target on it, which I think causes it to get threat. Let's see. When you wound a weak point, you resolve its effect. For this foe, it's +1 threat. Yes, it is. And you can see that right here. When you hit a point that has that little symbol, it gets +1 threat. Now it's saying the foe's turn comes up, and it draws a threat card, and this time it's drawing all foes, which is this one. So that means all foes activate. So for their activation, it's going to activate the 1 threat again, and it's going to move to position A, which is just 1 space over, and it should do a whack again. Yeah, it'll do a whack. It has to match up exactly with the positional grid. So far nothing is shocking here. So this time when it rolls, it's going to roll, I can't find it, this one right here. This is what it rolls. Okay, so your right shoulder is hit for 1 damage. So this is confusing as hell. So that's your right shoulder, so it's truly a mirror die roll. I would assume that's your left shoulder, right? Because it's from the point of view of the foe. Because it's on the left side, so it's your left shoulder. But it's telling you that it's your right shoulder, which means you have to like invert the... they do it already for you, because look here. The right shoulder... Alright, fair enough, fair enough. So they're damaging this, but you have no armor. So you lose 1 hit point, is what it's saying, because you have no armor there. And now their turn is resolved. So it says you have no armor, so your right shoulder, so you simply lose 1 hit point. If you're at 0 hit points right now, don't worry. You can use the Surge ability at the start of your turn. You only lose a battle if all exiles are at 0 at the end of any exile turn, not merely after a foe turn. Okay, that's obviously not something we use here in this battle, but it's just letting you know it's not the end of the world, I guess. So, we refresh all of our action tokens. If you're at 0 hit points, surge and put a wear token on your portrait. So there is some kind of penalty there, but we're not at 0. I don't know why we would be. We're following the step by step. But I guess it's just trying to let you know that that's something in the rules if you were in that position. I would need the rule book because I don't understand what surge is and what's the penalties that you get, all that stuff. So we're going to do a minor action basic move, just like before. It's going to give us a combo point, and we have to move, of course, for 3 spaces, and we're going to move towards him, apparently. So we're not using our bow. Then we're going to do a basic attack, and this time we're going to use the knife. So they have the knife here, and you can see it requires you to be adjacent. It's got this weird... this is still confusing me, but I think what it means is that wherever you hit, the next thing you hit is to the top left of it. I mean, I'm sort of starting to understand that. And it also means that if you roll a 2 or better, you're hitting here. If you roll 12 or better, you're going to hit both. I'm also getting that. And maybe it is as simple as that, and I'm overcomplicating things. Okay, so we're going to roll a 20, and we get a crit. We get a natural 20. So when you do that, it actually becomes a 21 because of your endurance. But when you get a crit natural 20, you gain 2 skill points, or combo points, or whatever. Choose the shown diagonal and apply the attack pattern. So we're going to resolve the critical, applying 1 bonus damage, and then pay a mana point to activate Mark and apply a bonus damage, and that should defeat the thing. So let's step back and go through. First thing, excuse me. First thing is we put a cube on the knife. So that was done. We roll a 20. It's called a natural 20. If you get a natural 20 in combat, you gain +2. We took care of that. All right. So then it says, we got over a 12, which means we get to do both of the hits on that knife pattern. And it's a diagonal attack. The pattern starts from the bottom right and moves diagonally up and left. There are 3 possible diagonals to hit. Choose the shown diagonal, passing through a critical, and hit the hit point on the left side, wounding it. So what it's saying to do is it's telling us to choose this one, but that one's already been hit, and I don't understand why it's telling us to choose that one. So then that means this one gets hit. Okay, fair enough. So we're choosing something that was already hit, I guess. And so that's the diagonal pattern. It's hitting here and here. Okay. And then, because we had a critical, it's passing through a critical. So this and this passes through that. Now that's complicated. Wow, there's so much into this. So see that critical symbol's in between these two. So because I'm doing both of these, I pass through that critical, which means I also hit this one, right? Because when you pass through that critical, it damages whatever the critical is pointing to. Wow, okay. And then I spend another mana point, which puts me to 0, and then I'm going to hit this thing, which would cause its threat to go up, but it's fully defeated. And there you go. We won. We're victorious, and we go to the end of the battle. Okay, that was interesting enough. I definitely learned something. There's this combat is pretty complex with the whole hitting multiple spots. It makes me think the Valor one with the spin attack is actually going to be a little more valuable. Don't dislike it at all. It seems interesting. At the end, things do refresh. So, for example, this would go back on your mark, and then your cube goes back on the quiver. The wear damage would stay the same, except in this particular tutorial, it says that reset all your markers, hit points, stamina points, mana points, and remove any wear tokens. Basically, everything refreshes because it's tutorial. But that may not be the case in a real scenario. So yeah, was it fun? Sure, it was absolutely fun. I have some questions, and the questions are more centered around, like, I did not figure out how the critical worked until I understood that you have this pattern. And I'm really glad that it showed me that you can hit a spot that's already been hit in order to hit the other spot. Like, for example, I probably could have chose this on the diagonal pattern, right? because this was the situation, right? All three of those were available. I could have chosen this one, the diagonal pattern, but by choosing this one, I get to knock that one out for the diagonal pattern, and because I crossed over that, I get this one as a bonus, so I still get to knock off 2 for the price of 1. That was a little ingenious. I don't know if I would have thought of that because I didn't realize that was possible. But now that I understand that that's possible, I think the tutorial did a good job of helping me figure out like how best to do this. So that would be this character. We got 3 more to go. And so they have a guide that takes you through those 3. Let me pause and look at the next one. I don't know if we need to go as slow through these next ones because we at least understand basic concepts now. But the skills are going to be completely different. And just bear in mind, I keep picking up the pieces, but we have stuff like this, like the bow, right there. That's everything you need to know about the bow, and then there's even an FAQ on the other side. And then the quiver and the hunting knife, like it's all there. So this is something that use your cards. And in fact, I might start bringing this up instead of constantly, picking up the pieces and showing them to the camera. And then I also have this where we do start the game with one of these cubes, and I can spend 1 to get 2, right? I took that skill. And I always thought that would be helpful, and now that I understand how these combo skills work, I actually am glad I took that skill. That's going to be very nice to have, I think, in the long term here. Alright, so, 1 done, more to go. Where are we at? We're at 1 hour and 41. Let me review the next one, see how things look. And yeah, I think this is a great exercise for you at home. If you're unsure which of these 6 characters you want to take into you for the campaign, this is a great way to go through all of them and at least get their initial skills out of the way and get a feel for how they fight. The bow one, I've already gotten the impression you're going to have to do a lot of movements, right? Because you have to be within a certain range to do this, and but it's fine. I'm totally happy with it. I think the mark works the way I would expect mark to work. The snipe is extra interesting because based on what we learned, that would mean that whatever I hit, I'm either going diagonal up and left or down and right. So you're hitting like potentially 5 spots on a target, or with this particular target, with everything being in 2 columns, I would hit, like, let's say the right side, and then I'm basically hitting 2 in one column and then 1 in the other. That's what that's basically saying. And so, like, if I hit the shield, I would be hitting up near the face and down near the torso. So that makes more sense to me now that we've done a few more. But you have to roll the right level on your dice with your skill set. I think it's pretty cool so far. So again, let me pause and look at the next set and then figure out how much I want to do on the video. Because to be quite frank, I'm ready to start playing the campaign. I actually think I get it, at least to the point that I want to move on. And I'm ready to start looking at the real rules because they're explaining things to me, and then I'm realizing there's stuff in the rules I want to look at. So there's a lot of that going on. But let me pause. I'm also dealing with a small cough, and I need more fluids. So I'll be right back. Okay, I decided we're not going to play it out as strong as excuse me, as before, but instead I'm going to show you through the camera the visuals, because they show you where everybody's moving and what they're doing. So we're going to go through that. It's going to be a lot quicker, and I still think it'll give you a great idea, and me, how the skills work, and we can see if there's any deviations. 1 second. Sorry, I have a little bit of cough. So first thing that it does is the foe turn is exactly the same as the other one. They draw a boss, and instead they get 1, threat. So just like before. So then it's our turn, and we're going to do a minor action move, but right away because we're a rogue, this is the rogue character, by the way, we're going to spend the stamina point for 2 extra movement, so we're going to get 5 movement. So we already know how to move the token to the feet. We already know that we got to move the combo up 1. And then for the 5 movement, they're showing that we're going to start here instead of there, which is fine. Because remember, they're probably 1, 2, 3, 4, right, all around. So we're going to move 1, 2. It looks like it costs 2 movement to go through that type of terrain. No, 1, 2. It's 2 movement to go that way. 4, and then 5. And then we're going to be next to the target by the time we do all 5 movement. And again, if you have any questions, difficult terrain takes 2 movement, like so. And then the obscure only takes 1. Alright, so we do all that. Then we do a basic attack, which is there. And so the one thing is it's a dagger, right? So the dagger is different than the bow. And the dagger has a diagonal motion on it, and you can see that here. It has like a little diagonal. And you can see it's a 2 or more or a 12 or more to hit. Right? And so then they do the same thing. They roll a 5. So they just do the X hit. And they're choosing to hit the spot right above the wheel, right there. So very similar to the last time. Then we do another normal action, and this time they're going to do their backstab skill, which is a special skill for the rogue. And the backstab looks like this. You have to be holding a dagger to use the skill. It does cost a mana point, which he has, and I wasn't aware of that. That would have been nice to know, but they do have one. And you can see that you have all these X's up there. Only usable if there's no other foes in the 2 red squares in melee range. So you can't have any foes in those red squares. Target the foe in the black square. You check your dexterity with plus 20 if you're hidden, and deal damage accordingly. Alright, so what they're... I mean, this is clearly playing out a little different, but I understand why they each have their own separate things. So it is explaining in the thing here. So it's explaining here that the positional grid shows it's a melee attack, and it's explaining how there can be nobody there or there, which is fine. Then it's saying spend your mana point, put your action on the dagger, and then we rolled a 15. Actually, we rolled a 16, and that's enough to get into the gray zone, right, for your dexterity. And you can see there on the backstab, there's 2, 15, and then 25, and it looks like it's a downwards motion, right? So then we get to do 2 of those downward motions, so it's going to start on the top right, near the head. First point of damage moves up, and then the second point of damage is going to remove the armor. But it's not going to pierce the armor, I don't believe. Oh, yes it is, because look. It pierces the armor because see the blue around it? That's a piercing attack. So it does pierce the armor, and you can see here the second point hits the armored point. When you deal piercing damage, you get to remove the armor and apply the wound immediately. Okay? So then he gains another threat. He's up to 2. He takes his turn, and you can see he activates, and he's going to do his whack. Where's he going to move to? To do his whack, he's moving all the way around, because remember, he has to be 1 space away from you, and you have him cornered. So he actually has to do a lot of movement. So he'll actually probably move to here, because that's the shortest amount of movement. Ah, but he can't. He can't whack over that terrain. A doesn't work because melee attacks don't cross impassable borders. Interesting. That is what the bow and the stuff means. This is movement points for any character. This means you can shoot over normal terrain. You can shoot over difficult. You cannot shoot over obscure. That's what that means. This one, you can shoot over impassable, and you can't shoot over walls. This is you can't melee over walls. You can melee through obscure, even though you can't shoot through obscure. That's what that means. Melee, melee. And then here, that's magic. That, I finally understand what that means. Okay, getting back to normal programming here. Yes, I have a cord to charge my camera, and it's getting in the way. 1 second. Okay, so they have us going through the damage. Well, here we're doing this one. And same deal, they damage the chest. It takes aware damage. So it's only a 1 damage attack, and it's explaining how all that works. Then the exile goes again. They're going to do a move, and you can see they're going to move so they're next to the person again, but it's a sneak move. Interesting. So you become hidden. It's 3 movement points. Let's see. So they're doing a basic move to gain a combo and move with 3 points. And here you can see they're actually moving 1, 2 up next to the foe. Then they're doing a sneak. It's a minor action. So they're spending a normal action and then a minor action to do the sneak. Sneak lets you, let me zoom in for you, become hidden in by placing an alert token on the last space foes saw you. Foes will target your alert token as if it was an exile. You can't sneak if any foes are nearby, indicated by the red brackets in the positional grid. So what they have you doing then is you spend your skill points, and then you put that sneak token there, and then you move away. Okay, that's what the sneak token's for. So that's where you were last seen. So you move 1 space away, and then for the normal item, you're going to take a trap and place both trap tokens. It's a normal action that you can only take while hidden. You can place 1 or both of your traps. You can only place trap tokens in adjacent unoccupied squares. Okay, my apologies. They asked you to put the sneak token there and then move like that. So what they're doing here is they're going to put a trap here and here. Like so. Looking at the positional grid, these traps will trigger if a foe moves into an adjacent square, or into the square containing the trap. Okay, fair enough. Now it's the foe's turn, right? So they're going to pay a threat and move the foe 1 square towards A. Then trigger the trap, etc. So let's get into what they're going to do here. The foe has 1 threat, so it chooses the 1 threat behavior where it's going to move to the target furthest away 6 movement points. There will be multiple mob miniatures of the same type. You would spend 1 threat for each. You would spend threat for them only once, and each would use the same behavior. Okay, they always throw in these like extra little rule tidbits that aren't necessary for this, but helping you for later. Okay, I apologize for the wobbly camera. So the foe will spend its movement to get into the position versus the furthest possible exile. In this case, you're hidden. The foe will target the alert token as if it were an exile. So the foe, of course, is here, and he's trying to target that. So he would either go there or there. There are 2 equal paths the foe could take to get to A. So players get to choose which to take. For this example, you can choose the orange path so it'll trigger the trap. Just so you're aware, if they chose this way, they would trigger the trap at A anyways. It would actually trigger both traps at the same time. So, these are armed. So then what would happen is they roll, and it looks like charisma gets added. And you know this because it's written on the trap. It's a charisma check, which is an interesting check for a trap. So you get a 13. High enough for both the 2 and the 12, so you get this diagonal thing going on. And so that's the case where, again, you do this diagonal and you're going to trigger the third one to get hit because you just did a critical. Very cool. I'm starting to really like this character. I love the trap concept. This one is definitely a keeper. The bow one was sufficient, and I like the range attack on the bow. This one is fantastic. This whole trap mechanic and the hidden mechanic, I love it. I was a little not sure about this one, but now that I'm doing this, it's like, yes, this is how I want traps to work. Okay, so then the foe's turn resumes, and he moves one more square, and he triggers the next trap. So in this case, you roll 1, and natural 1 is a failure regardless of what else happens. So no damage is applied, and of course the trap gets moved to disarmed. And then, of course, the foe tries to attack the alert token, and it's removed, and you're no longer hidden, right? So if there were multiple foes out there, as soon as they attack where your hidden token is, you're now revealed from that point on. So that's an interesting thing to understand. So then it's back to the exile turn, and they're going to spend 1 stamina point to pick up a trap in combat. Traps refresh for free when you're out of combat. If your character doesn't have enough stamina points, pretend you do for this example. So interesting. So you spend a stamina point to pick up a trap while you're in combat. Is that written anywhere? Not really. Maybe there's... you know what? I bet it's written on the trap card. Right here. Reaction. Cost 1. It's 1 or free out of combat. Within 1 range of a trap, put the token on your trap item armed. So you still have to do the trap action, but it's like a free action. Very cool. I'm liking this whole mechanic. Then for a basic action, they're doing the practice kunai, which is where is that? Oh, it's he has it up and it's on his belt. It's a belt action. And so he's rolling a d20. It uses a range attack, so it's like a throwing dagger. It has a range of 3. You can see that here. And you can see the hit range there. And so they roll a crit. He gets his skill points. It does that pattern. And so boom, boom, they're hitting up here. Let me scroll out a little bit. And though you wounded a weak point, you defeated the foe. And there's no weak point to resolve. Boom, you're victorious. Another player aid done. Alright, I definitely love the way that character works. It's a keeper. So we got 2 more to go. I'm at 2 hours. Let's try to crank these out. I hope you don't mind that I'm not doing the actual figurines on the board. I really want to get through this as quickly as I can, but at the same time get a feel and help you get a feel for how these characters would work. And they're all doing similar things. We all know how the attack works for the bot and all this stuff, so let's just try to get it resolved. The well done on the way sneak and all those things work with the traps. I really like it. Okay, so let's move on. We got Light and Arcana, which I'm excited about both of those. I am actually very curious to see the other two. Let me pause and figure out which one to do next. Okay, so I actually went through the inspirational one during the pause, and there are some pretty cool things that came out of it. The first one is he did this attack that went this way. This one already had damage. So he started here and went this way, and he hit the critical, right? This one was already damaged. It allows you to keep going and hit the one above. So when it shows a pattern where you're hitting this and then above it, it doesn't have to be physically above it. It's physically above it. It doesn't have to be the first one. So as long you could actually choose the bottom and just keep going up until you find an empty one and then hit that one. So that was the first thing I learned is so if you hit here and then you hit something above it, it could be either this one or this one. It's just whichever one's first. And this one was already damaged, so that's the first one. Okay, so that's the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned is that this critical here points to the shield. So that counts as a normal hit. So what that did was that removed the shield token but did not actually damage it. So he had to come back and damage this again a second time later. And again, we're talking about the bard character here. But the interesting thing I wanted to show you is that for the bard character, he has this lute. And so this is it's the musical instrument. And you can see it right here. It has a yellow and a red on it. So that means you're going to roll those big yellow and red dice, as you can see here. And then the skill, Anthem of Vigor, shows the dice oriented to the right. So see it has a little nub pointing to the right. So both of these dice have to be oriented that way. And then you take the little black markers and you look for the musical notes. So if the black markers are on the same spot as a musical note, you score a musical note. So in this initial roll, 0 of the black markers matched up with the musical note, so he rolled a 0. And this is the chart. So for a 0, he can either heal or gain a stamina, but not both. So then what he did was he used his practice lute, which has which is the same thing. There's a cube on it right here. He spent the cube, and by spending the cube, that lets him re-roll the dice. So he re-rolled, and then he ended up matching. This one right here matched that musical instrument note right there. So then he ended up getting the middle result and was able to heal himself 1 and give himself 1 stamina. So if that interests you, that's how the bard character works, at least initially, with the starting equipment. The other thing is that this, remember the chest armor is what always gets damaged? Well, since this is it consumes 2 locations, the whole thing is damaged. So whether it was a chest or what is that below the chest? The legs. Once it gets damaged, then, so basically this is a much weaker armor than having 2 separate pieces. So yeah, that was the key thing that was different. The bard did have a ranged attack, so you could theoretically get rid of your ranger because he has a crossbow. So if you're thinking, okay, who would I swap out, and if I wanted a character like this, that's one of the things you can do. Also, because this does do healing, you could theoretically get rid of the cleric. We haven't tried the cleric yet, so I don't know how much I want to do that. But the bard doesn't look awful. So that's the one skill, the Anthem of Vigor. It was pretty cool. And then he used these other skill called the Gutsy Dash. This was an attack skill, and basically you could see that here. Gutsy Dash lets you make a basic Tanto attack, and it's just a melee attack that you can see here. Based on the threat, you get to have movement points. So it's you dash a certain number of movement points based on how much threat they have, and then you get to do a melee attack. So that can also be handy, right? Because so far no other character has had an ability that reacts to the threat that the enemies have. But based on the threat the enemies have, you can move and attack all in one action. So that's one thing. Another thing I noticed. So those are the 2 special skills for the bard. Not horrible. I actually I can see a bard being, fairly decent. I ruled it out because I'm just nervous about bards, but that's not bad at all. And again, you might want to replace the cleric with that. And who knows? Before we're done, we might actually do that because I haven't seen the cleric. So I'm going to pause again and let's go through. I'm going to go through the valor one now. Okay, the valor was what you would expect it to be, I guess. The one key thing that was interesting is there were different cards drawn for the foe. So when the foe did damage here, this was a 2 damage hit. So the Gambeson took and absorbed one of the damage, but the shield absorbed another. And it said that the shield absorbs 2 locations. It blocks one of 2 spaces that your shield is protecting. Like, I don't know how to determine which spaces the shield protects. I'm assuming it would be on the shield card, which I don't have because that belongs with the character that is not out at the moment. But basically, it was just showing how the Valor character was able to block 2 damage that was caused by one single attack. Now, what was interesting is the shield has 3 wear marks on it. It means it can be used 3 times, but it was only able to block. You only do wear 1 at a time. It's not like you could take 2 wear damage on it to block 2 hits or 2 damage at once. So that part wasn't true. The other part is it did do a spin attack. The spin attack hits 4 adjacent enemies, which was pretty worthless. Because obviously there's only 1 enemy. But, if you're wanting to attack multiple enemies at once, the spin attack did definitely help there. He also did a lot of shenanigans where he was trading equipment. So he had a spear that he replaced with a sword. So then it shows him using the spear attack. So one of his minor actions was swapping equipment. And then here you can see he used a shield charge, which basically lets him charge across the map. And then he shoves the person a certain direction when he hits their space, and depending on the direction that he shoved them, he's causing damage to them. So since he shoved them to the left, he gets to do damage to the left. The other thing that's important, remember when I said when you're doing damage up, you skip the spaces? This helped me to understand that little arrow there is showing that that's the direction you go. So if you don't see the arrow, then they don't get to do the up until they find a hit. Almost all of them do have arrows, because you could see up here. Anyways, and then eventually he did a throw attack, because he has a throwing item. It was all straightforward stuff. I think the biggest takeaway from the Valor character is he had the ability to hit 4 characters at once. And that was basically the gist of it. So now we got the Path of Light and the Path of Arcana. I would say between these two, the Inspiration, the Bard, is the only one that has caught my interest. And it is possible I may swap one of these for the Bard. It interested me that much. I thought the musical notes mechanic was pretty cool. The way you roll the dice and they have to match. That was a little ingenious if I think about it. I thought that was very, very cool. So again, this particular designer, he does good work. And anyways, I can only bring 4 characters, so let's see how these next 2 go. Okay, so the Path of Light, the cleric class, was quite interesting. So the first thing is the way he took damage. There was nothing special there, but this skill, Pummel, it does require a combo point to use. You can see here, it shows him in the middle, and then all 8 squares around him, including the diagonals, have X's. This is literally, he attacks all 8. Like, if he was surrounded by 8 enemies, he would attack all 8 enemies with this one attack. So it's just like the spin attack that Valor has. So it's amazing. And then on top of that, for each foe he hits, he gets to choose the pattern he wants to do. So this is like a precise pattern, which I can't remember what the X means, but we did cover that with the bow character, and then of course these are the sweeping ones where it comes in from the right or it comes in at a diagonal, and it was able to see how this crit is off on the right. So if you're coming in from the right, he was able to use that crit to do both damage. Really well done. Again, I'd have to look up what the X means. The blue is what allowed it to ignore the armor. I can't remember what the other, if that X means something specific, or it just means you just hit any one spot and you get to choose. Because I think that's what that means. Actually, now that I think about it, yes, that is what that means. You choose a spot. This is you got to come in from the right, or you got to come in from an angle, right? You're still only hitting one spot, but those ones are dictated by the direction. So you get to do any of those three for each of the targets. You could switch which one you're using for each target you hit. How awesome is that? That's very awesome. So the other thing that he did was, he used his. He has an ability. Let me grab his cards. So he has the staff, as you can see, is just normal. He has this kit. Target one exile that's basically next to him, and he's allowed to target himself. Then you can check wisdom and heal them accordingly, right? And the kit has 2 cubes on it. I know this shows 1, but it has 2 if you look at the actual kit. And then the Prepare Bandages skill goes with that. Prepare Bandages costs 1 mana point, and it refreshes all cubes on a kit. So if your kit's empty, you can only replenish it in town. That's actually written down somewhere. It says you can refresh on rest, which that contradicts the rule set. The rule set says you had to go to town to refresh those in the kit. Here we go. Can you target yourself? Yes. You can target a hidden rogue. Can I use it in or out of combat? You can't target anybody who's already max HP. So, anyways, we'll have to clarify on that. But the Prepare Bandages is only while you're out of combat. You can spend a mana to refresh it, which is why... so maybe the rest is something you can only do in town. Maybe that's the reason why it says that. And that would make sense. Maybe you can't rest just because you're out of combat. Okay, and then the next thing that he has is he has this focus, which is a belt item. It does have 1 cube on it, and basically any exile that's in range of your focus, and this particular focus, you got to be next to them. Like there's a little map. So as long as he's next to... Oh no, it's range 1. That's what that means. So the range is 1. So he does a wisdom roll. And you could do this on yourself. Like he was targeting himself. So he does a wisdom check. And if he passes the wisdom check, it's going to add a bonus to your original die roll. So what the situation was here is he needed a 16 to damage 2 points. And he rolled a 15, which was 1 short. So then he spent one of these and then did a wisdom check, and he actually got enough to get a +2 to his die roll. So then he goes back to his original die roll, and that 15 turns into a 17, and now he was able to damage 2 points instead of 1. And it was like a basic, his basic staff attack. And that's it. And then you can see there's a lot of questions. And then if a roll's been improved by this or other means, may you still use your focus? And the answer is yes. Can I use a focus to help my own rolls? Yes, which is exactly what happened in the tutorial. Can basic attacks be improved with the focus? Yes. Can I improve a natural 1? No. That is the one interesting thing. And then, yeah, the pummel, like I said, it damages each foe. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's as good as the fighter. Anyways, yeah, Path of Light or Path of Valor, to me, they both do similar things. I like the Path of Light more. I'm very happy with that choice. So, Path of Light it is. I'm keeping him. So now we have Path of Arcana, the last one. Okay, so I just went through the Arcana one. Couple cool things to point out here. The first one is the Practice Tines is like a ranged attack. It doesn't require any mana. It's a ranged attack, like a magic wand. Think of it that way. So you could treat this like a little crossbow. so it has a 2 to 3 range, and so she has that ability, and then of course has the ability to hit multiple targets if you roll high enough. So that was the first thing for her. The second one is, and a couple of them have done this. I didn't point it out until now, and that is just because there's a cube on it, you can do the attack again. There's no requirement that, hey, this weapon already has a normal attack cube on, a normal action cube on it. You could put your other normal action cube on the same thing. There is no restriction that there can only be one cube on it. So the cubes are just there to represent that you've already spent it, but you can always do it a second time, and that's exactly what she does here. And then in this case, she only got the X. And remember, we were just asking what the S was, and there it is. X is a aim damage, so you get to pick anything and do 1 damage. And in this case, she chose the shield because she had to get rid of the shield. All right. In this case, she was able to, take 1 wear damage here, and then later she was able to elude all damage because she was able to use the terrain to prevent the bot from moving close enough to hit her. Not worth getting into like how that happened. The lightning bolt is interesting. You don't roll dice; it just hits. You spend the mana points, and then the range. Excuse me. See this here? The lightning bolt uses that skill. It's considered an area of effect, and it hits all enemies in a row. So if there were 3 enemies lined up, it would hit all 3 of them. In this case, that's not the case, but what it's trying to show you is that the lightning attack goes through obstacles. So like that's a barrier, and see this little black dash line is also a barrier. But see, none of those are barriers for here. The only thing that stops a magic attack is a wall. So the magic attack goes through all the barriers and is able to hit the bot. And that's why she was also able to move away and then not take any damage, because she was able to do a magic attack. And in doing so, it cost her 2 mana points, blah, blah, blah. And so you can see that it does a directional attack in the chosen direction. So in this case, she's choosing to attack to the right. And so then here you can see she applies the damage to it. And I actually don't know why it's going to the left. I guess maybe that's because what she chose. Maybe you do get to choose. But anyway, she chose to hit the crit here, like we've seen before. So she hits both of these, and the crit does that. So she did three damage to it. Then the Arcana class has a practice ledger, where for 1 cube you gain a mana back. That's what this is. You gain a mana point, but you can only refresh it in town. It requires you to do a rest action in town. So it's just showing how to do that. And then here's where they tried to whack her, but she was out of range. And then last but not least, she did her twin missile attack. And the key thing to point out with the twin missile attack is, it has its normal pattern of damage. You do have to roll for it, but that roll applies to both of the attacks. You're not rolling separately. And you see, you make an attack with your tines. So you use the weapon in your hand. But the key thing with this one is, look at the pattern here. If you're standing here, you hit a target that's 2 up and over. And so that was the situation here. It had to be 2 up and over. It would have also hit a target there if there was somebody standing there. So that twin missile attack requires you to be very specifically located. And of course, it's a combo type of item. So yeah, and then eventually they got cute and moved in to hand and finish it off with a sword, which was nothing special. And then they showed how rolling a crit did things, etc., etc. So that's it with the Arcana. So after reviewing everything, I would say that the cleric and the valor are interchangeable because they both have area of effect that hits multiple characters. You could argue that the Arcana is interchangeable as well with the valor or the cleric for the same reason, because the lightning bolt hits multiple characters. It's actually a lot more restrictive than the like the spin attack and the pummel hit everything around you if you're surrounded, whereas the mage is able to hit things a little further away. So I would say, like, if you wanted to get the Valor in, those are the ones you would swap out. I would say Arcana or the Light character. And if I wanted to get the Bard in, I would actually swap out the Wanderer, the Ranger. Um, and the reason I say that is because the Bard uses a crossbow and the Ranger uses a bow. I mean, they're very similar. The Bard has its loot, which can heal and do cool things. The Ranger just has snipe and mark and maybe a little bit more attacky stuff. The Bard has the ability to charge in and damage. Um, the Ranger does not, but it has the ability to mark somebody to do extra damage. So, anyways, that would be my suggestion. I mean, you could argue that the Bard can replace the Cleric, but I actually think that the only reason you're doing that is because the Cleric can heal people and so can the Bard. But from a mechanics perspective, the Bard is actually closer to the Wanderer in terms of they do range damage and then they can heal, whereas the Wanderer does range damage and can't heal. So that's your difference. I think the Thief is its own little class with the traps. And to be honest, actually, the one I'm most excited to play is the Thief right now. I think that is the most unique mechanic in the game. I actually like the Cleric in this game. I think it's got some neat mechanics, so I'm keeping that. I think the Pummel looks fantastic, and I like it way more than the Valor character. The Mage, the Arcana one, I could probably take it or leave it, but because he has spells, I need to keep him because I always like having a Mage in my party. It's getting back to my D&D roots. I want one person who has roles. I want roles, right? The Cleric is playing like a paladin. They're going to be both our fighter and our healer. The Mage is the Mage. The Thief is the Thief. The only one that you could argue is maybe a little bit redundant is the Wanderer, because the Thief and the Wanderer sort of have similar roles, except the Wanderer has a bow and is good at ranged attacks. And so yeah, you could argue maybe we could swap him out for the Bard. And honestly, I think based on what I've seen so far, I think the designers balanced the game that it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a bad party. And I think he balanced the game to make that possible. Every character here has a hand-to-hand attack. Every character here, except for I think the Cleric, had a ranged attack. Yeah, because even the Thief had this like belt, throwing dagger. The Valor character had a spear for the range attack, or it was at least a far away attack. So I don't want to overlabor it. I just helping you out, like in my thoughts. That's how it would play out. I mean, you could always say, "Hey, I don't want to deal with this," and then great, you got room for one of the others. But I don't think there's anything that's completely redundant with anything else, which of course is the hallmark of a good design, and I would imagine the designer didn't want that. But yeah, I would say, like, if anything, I'm going to swap out the Wanderer for the Bard, and I would swap out the Cleric for the Valor. At this point. But I happen to like the Cleric. The Wanderer one I'm not as sure about. The Bard one impressed me. I thought the mechanics of the Bard was really cool. But I'm going to stick with the Wanderer because I do like the idea of a bow and arrow. And when I'm thinking about loot, the loot for the archer. But here's the thing. I think this game has loot that's specific to a class. It's not like you get a bow and arrow and you can give it to anybody. I don't think this game has that kind of mechanic. So yeah, that's enough of my rambling there. So we have almost finished the tutorial. We are done with the first combat. So there's a couple of things to go over. There's combat rewards. There is another level we need to go to, like another room. There's some points of interest that's going to explain to us. We're going to get our first key, which probably means we're then going to go back to that guy that we weren't supposed to talk to. And then there's state changes, and it's going to explain how that works. if you've ever played what's that memory game? It's I think they have the second version is Citadels, but the first one was Cloud something. Not Cloud Spire. You're washed up on a shipwreck and you're exploring an area. Anyways, it's just the state of the board changes. Then we're gonna leave a location. And then there's town. We're gonna go to a town, and then we're gonna level up, and then it's gonna explain some world map travel, and then and only then do we finally finish the tutorial. So this tutorial still has a lot more to go. So I am at 2 hours and 25 minutes. Going through all 6 characters was definitely a lot. I've been here for hours. So why don't we wrap up the first combat and do the combat rewards, and then we'll start with the next video after this point. So there's a brief explanation of what happens if you're KO'd. So let's get you involved here. That's this. While in combat, if you have 0 hit points, you're considered KO'd. Place your miniature on its side. You can't take any action, use skills or items. Other exiles can try to heal you and remove your KO'd status. Exiles and foes can move through your space and end their movement on your space. If all exiles are KO'd, at the end of a player turn, you are defeated. However, all is not lost if you're KO'd, you can still surge. Once per combat, when you start your turn KO'd, you may place a wear token on your portrait. Stand your miniature upright. You may take actions as usual, ignoring your KO'd status until the end of your turn. If you still have 0 hit points at the end of your turn, you return to being KO'd. At the end of the combat, remove wear tokens. So the wear token is just tracking that you used your surge. Okay, so there's no long-standing thing. The funny thing is you could surge to kill somebody and then get re-KO'd. But at least, you got one more action in to do some damage. I find that to be interesting. Okay. Now that you understand your basics, you actually play through combat. Following the instructions on the back of Med Zero, each player places their miniature into one of the spaces adjacent to the starting point X. The exile who explored the area will begin combat, taking a foe turn followed by their exile turn. Then each player will take their turn clockwise around the table. Return here after you've killed the practice dummy. Oh, interesting. So now we're going to do the thing I said that we didn't get to do, what I wanted to do, and that is we're going to combat this dummy like a party would instead of individuals. Very interesting. So basically, everybody goes back on the board, and now we're going to play this like it was 1999. We're going to party like it was 1999. So we're going to shuffle this, and if that's the case, I'm going to do that in the next video. So yeah, I think this is cool. We'll do the combat and see how this plays out as a party. And let's resolve that in the next video. Thanks for watching. As always, stay awesome.